Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity for us to speak on Senate Bill 885. I had the opportunity to serve on the Child Protective Legal Representation Task Force a couple of years ago, where we discussed the issues facing young people as they are in our court system. In Michigan, we have a very decentralized system where every county does their own things, and we found that disparity amongst counties oftentimes resulted in poor service and poor representation for the young people that are in front of our court system. And so there was a series of recommendations that came out of the task force, but one of the overarching pieces was the need to have a statewide office within state government that would be able to be the place for a variety of these conversations to ensure over time that we increase the training available for lawyers, that we could increase the pay for lawyers that are providing this service. We obviously took a look at a number of states that are doing things significantly different, and there's a lot of best practices to be learned. And so this bill is simple in that sense, is that it creates a statewide office here within LARA, and will be the group that helps us try to deal with the patchwork of rules and regulations that we have from county to county. I want to just acknowledge a couple of people, through this process. One is my colleague in the House who is involved and engaged in this is Representative Jenkins Arno. She's introduced a bill similar to this week in the House, and I want to thank her and her team for this. I want to just thank the members of the task force specifically, and that task force was co-chaired by Chief Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Bolden, and appreciate their service. Alicia's here, obviously, from SCAO to talk a little bit more detail about the office and the need, and just appreciated SCAO's expertise as we went through this process. So.
Thank you, Senator. Chair Chang and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of Senate Bill 885. My name is Alicia Moon, and I am the General Counsel for the Michigan Supreme Court. I also served as a member of the Child Protective Legal Representation Task Force, which, as mentioned, was co-chaired by the Chief Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Bolden. Senate Bill 885 is the first step towards implementing the primary recommendation of that task force. While I do plan to keep my remarks relatively brief in hopes of allowing time for questions, I want to start by taking a step back to talk about the nature of child protective proceedings. When I refer to child protective proceedings, I'm talking about the court cases that are initiated when the government intervenes into the private sphere of the family due to suspected abuse or neglect of a child. For the child at the center of an abuse or neglect case, decisions about nearly every aspect of their lives, from where they will live to who they can have relationships with, where they go to school, and what services and supports they receive, are no longer made by their parents and are instead ultimately decided by the judge in their court case. In these cases, high-quality legal representation for the parents and the children involved is critical. Not only does high-quality legal representation protect the fundamental rights of parents and children, but it can be a critical factor in improving outcomes in the foster care system. Now, when I say high-quality legal representation, I mean access to lawyers who are well-trained and highly knowledgeable in child welfare law and in child development and trauma. Lawyers who have the proper litigation skills and understand the importance of out-of-court efforts, including time spent meeting with their clients outside of the intimidating courthouse environment, getting to know their strengths, needs, wishes of the parents and children that they represent. Research has shown that high-quality legal representation plays a critical role in these cases by preventing unnecessary family separation, expediting safe reunification between parents and their children, increasing placement of children with their relatives, and in situations where children cannot safely go home, facilitating permanency for those children, often in the form of adoption or guardianships. These systemic improvements can ultimately result in cost savings due to shorter stays of youth in foster care. Additionally, children and parents with high-quality lawyers are more engaged in their case, more likely to perceive the system to be fair, and more likely to receive case service plans tailored to their needs. The bottom line is better representation means better results and lower costs. The Senator mentioned the Child Protective Legal Representation Task Force, and I want to just highlight some of the efforts that task force engaged in to understand how legal representation in these cases is currently working across Michigan. The task force conducted a statewide listening tour, members participated in child welfare stakeholder meetings, and administered surveys to children, parents, and attorneys involved in the current system. The results of the listening tour and surveys were troubling, to say the least. We found that 80% of counties report critical attorney shortages, with significant difficulty in finding attorneys willing to do this work. Compensation available to attorneys is inconsistent across the state, with attorneys in one populous county being offered just $175 to represent their client in a full trial. Trials, of course, are proceedings that can and should take months of preparation. We also heard that 75% of counties require no specialized training before attorneys can take on these cases. The current system results in 50% of surveyed youth reporting that they had never met with their lawyer outside of court. 40% of surveyed parents reporting that they felt that their lawyers did not communicate or advocate effectively, failing to explain the legal process or provide case updates, leaving them feeling unprepared and unheard in court. Task force members also heard from other states to learn how those states were tackling these issues and to inform the ultimate recommendation here, which is to create a statewide office for parent and child legal representation that would be charged with creating standards for training, performance, and compensation for these attorneys, and centralizing the process for appointing these attorneys. So before you today is Senate Bill 885, which is the first step towards implementing the recommendations of this task force. Senate Bill 885 would create a governing commission and a supporting office. While the general principles advanced by the task force were clear, there is much work to be done to distill these broad goals into specific and actionable plans that could be implemented. By creating the commission and the supporting office, SB 885 creates the infrastructure necessary for that next step. Specifically, the bill would create the Parent and Child Legal Representation Commission, and this would be an autonomous commission within LARA that would create standards of practice for attorneys receiving these appointments, including caseload standards, standards for client contact, and training requirements, as well as clearly defining what legal and non-legal services would be eligible for reimbursement by that office. I want to be clear that this bill ensures that these standards, once created, would not be implemented without the opportunity for public comment and would not be implemented without appropriation of sufficient funding. This commission would also be tasked with establishing the system to facilitate appointment, including establishing a standardized rate of pay. The bill would hold local funding units to their current levels of funding for this work. Finally, the bill creates the Office of Parent and Child Legal Representation that would serve as staff for the commission and implement the systems ultimately established by the commission. It is expected that in the initial years after its creation, this office would be quite small in size, as they would simply serve to support the commission's efforts to establish the standards and systems that I previously outlined. And once those standards and systems are established and funded, the office would then be charged with implementing and monitoring those standards and systems. In sum, better legal representation means better results and lower costs. The current system is broken. Children and families are paying the cost, and there is a better way. That better way forward is Senate Bill 885, which presents a tangible and feasible step towards a better justice system for Michigan families. Thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, both of